I don't see anything.
Okay.
How are you?
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, the regular board meeting for the Greeneview Board of Education for Thursday, December 16th, 2021. Call the roll.
Suzanne Arthur,
Here.
Todd Ireland,
Here.
Scott Powers,
Present.
Angela Reagan,
Here.
Teresa Wallace.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Sorry for showing you. Oh, blinded anybody.
Higher than your phone. That's a camera?
Yes.
Okay, so recognition of invited guests, we have none. Invitation for public participation.
I'm just going to do it down in the comment section.
Did you grab the?
Yeah, I regret
Oh.
this.
Okay, approve the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Looks like we have an addendum.
I do have an addendum, there's a couple items, 7 and 8 for the treasurer's report. There was one item that went out on the agenda before that did come off. That was a then and now that we had done previously, so we took that off. But items in 7, 8. And then personnel, we have items 8 and 9 added to the agenda.
Have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Right. Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers.
Yeah.
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, now we have a presentation, special education services, co-teaching.
Right here. All right. Thank you so much. So Thomas, am I clicking the link on this one or just clicking forward? All right. Before I get started, just, I'd like to say first, good evening and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and talk about some of the work that we've been doing in our middle and our high school buildings. I'm really excited to share this with you. I actually asked some of our staff members who are involved in this transition to come just to kind of advocate for the work that they've been doing as well. I just wanted to celebrate what tremendous work they've been doing. These are some of our middle school teachers. We have Mr. Chase Held, who's our 5th grade intervention specialist. And then our co-teaching team with our 4th grade students, Mrs. Heather Fisher and Mrs. Don Wamble. So I want to give them an opportunity kind of in this presentation just to speak to some of the work that they've been doing, just to improve the services that we're providing, not just to our special education students, but this is really an initiative that's helped establish more inclusive spaces for all of our kids. So just to get things started here, we started with this mission statement of how would we create a collaborative community that's going to maximize the experience of all the learners in our school while we're preparing them for life in the modern world. And the reason why this was so important was really because of where we started. And where we started when I was hired into this district as a 6th grade teacher, and then where I saw things as a special education supervisor, was we really only had 2 tracks within the district once students reached the middle and the high school levels. If you were a student who was receiving special education services and you had a learning disability in reading, or you had a learning disability in math, there was really only one opportunity for you, and that was being taught in a resource classroom. Now, our resource classrooms were staffed by tremendous people. I mean, we have excellent teachers in there doing excellent work for those kids. But this is not the general education setting. This is not grade level based education. We were teaching the standards, but we were differentiating those standards a lot. And if you think of where these kids would be starting 5th grade, if you're pulled away from that grade level based instruction in 5th grade, you're going to limit your opportunities to be successful every year. So making this switch couldn't be more important for us. So we had resource rooms set up. We had the general education classroom set up. But those classrooms, we were expecting teachers to educate a wide variety of students without the sort of intervention support that we have within our buildings. And if you couldn't fit into those two paths, we really had our third rail of students going to Greene County ESC programming. Those would be things like the Learning Center, the Academy in Bellbrook, Outdoor Advantage. Kids that are outside of our walls, that are outside of our district, that while they're still Greeneview Rams, they're not present in our buildings any longer. So this was where we started. But what does the research tell us about how we could do better? Like, why is co-teaching important? And these were pieces of research work that's been done that we shared with our staff members as we were going through this transition. So what is the good that comes out of this? Well, students have the opportunity to be cooperative with one another. They have positive peer role models. We see a decrease in referrals for intensive special education services. There are fewer disruptions in discipline referrals. Everything that you would want your students to be receiving is exemplified here, right? We want to give these kids access to an opportunity. So the research was right in front of us. Now, why does it work for us? What have we seen like that makes this successful? Well, we have the opportunity for teachers to work together. And one of the subtle benefits that we've seen, and this came about in one of our book study meetings at the high school, was that we've got a lot of students that come from single parent homes, that may come from broken homes. A lot of our trauma-based students come from unstable family environments. We have the opportunity to model healthy relationships between adults for these kids. There are men and women, 2 men, 2 women in the classrooms, like working together collaboratively to provide services to these kids. That sort of modeling is really important when we're talking about the emotional and mental health of our students. It also increases our responsiveness to student needs. We have the ability to capitalize on the strength of 2 teachers in the same class. We can implement research-based interventions immediately rather than waiting for a referral process where we have to find an intervention specialist. We have to find a therapist. We're building those things into the classrooms. And we can empower these co-teaching partners to think creatively and differently about what they're doing in their classrooms. So the solution that we came up with was to move our English language arts and our mathematics instruction in grades 4 through 12 into the general education setting. This also allowed us to create a cross-categorical classroom space in those same buildings, which, while it may sound like it doesn't match exactly with the inclusion piece, it created a spot for students that have functional and life skills needs to get the sort of explicit instruction that they need to benefit. Rather than putting all students with disability in one space, we're going to create spaces that are more appropriate for the ability level of each kid. So now in our buildings, not only do we have these inclusive spaces with opportunities for intervention and tutoring, but we also have classrooms that can focus on life skills and start preparing those students for a transition into programming and life skills opportunities outside of high school that we didn't have before. So it helps us specialize to the needs of the kids. And we still have those resource rooms. Every intervention specialist in our district has a space where they can provide intervention and tutoring outside of just the general education classroom instruction that they're doing. So we didn't go away from that completely. There are still spaces and opportunities available for that sort of individualized work, for one-on-one work, for small group work outside of the classroom. Those kids aren't forced into those spaces any longer. The resources that we use as we made this transition, we purchased some professional development. One of those trainings was from Ann Benninghoff. It was the co-teaching that works professional development. We spent some time with State Support Team 10 and used their inclusive educational practices training. And we have these 2 book studies going right now. One is the 30 Days to the Co-Taught Classroom. The other is a guide to co-teaching new lessons and strategies that help facilitate student learning. So we want to build the capacity of our teachers too. It wasn't just creating the system and saying, you know, do your best, go for it. We wanted to provide that backbone of support so that they could learn from each other and that we could all be a part of this transition as a team. What would you see if you're walking through these hallways? Well, you have a content specialist and an intervention specialist in every one of those classes. Now, there are still English language arts, mathematics classes that are not co-taught, but we do have for our co-taught program specific class periods that intervention specialists are scheduled into those rooms. Now, that even gives us the opportunity to build in therapies into those classrooms as well. So if there's something that our occupational therapist or physical therapist wants to work on with the student or even do a collaborative group, the opportunity is available. Speech pathologists fall into that as well. The instruction that we're doing in these classrooms will fall under one of these 4 research-based co-teaching strategies: supportive, parallel, complementary, or team teaching. And those are parts of the training that we've done with the staff to make them feel comfortable with these changes. And the most important part is the last one that you see there. It's the shared ownership of all students. When you walk into those classrooms, the hope, the goal, and what I have seen myself is that we don't have a general education teacher and a special education teacher. We have 2 teachers. When we're in those classrooms, we don't have identified students and unidentified students. We don't have typical students or non-typical students. We have teachers that are teaching everyone in the classroom. It's a level playing field for the students. It's on us to make sure that we're creating spaces and we're creating curriculum and work that is accessible to everybody. We're not making the students change for us. We're trying to make sure that we're accommodating to them. And what has that led to? Well, it's led to a new mindset for the teachers and for the buildings themselves. We believe that all teachers can teach all students, that all students' needs can be met in our buildings. And we presume competence for all. And the presuming competence piece is the part that I have found most powerful, in that we're not talking about proficiency here, but we're talking about the ability and the capacity to learn and grow for each of the students in our district, each one of them. If those kids are going into a classroom, we need to have adults and professionals that are looking at them as individuals who are capable of learning. Now, they may need to learn and grow at their own individualized level. That's fair. But they can all learn and grow, and we can all share experiences with them. The idea here is that we're providing opportunity, and it's always better to provide opportunity than to not. So where are we headed from here? Where we're at? We're not done. We've started, right? This is an initial step. This isn't something that we've put together and we can walk away from. So right now we're living in this for the first time at the high school. We're 2 years into this in the middle school. We need to strengthen the system. As we go through each day, each week, each month, we find new things that we need to look at. Scheduling kids, making sure that we've got support there, right? We've poured a lot of support into English language arts and math, but it's fair to say, what happens to those kids when they go to a science class, when they go to a social studies class? Like, we're looking at those things as we go and as we grow into this. We also need to really develop the knowledge of content and deepening relationships. And I want to give our teachers a chance to speak to this, but one of the main challenges, especially when you get to higher level math, is I don't know when the last time any of you were in an Algebra 2 class, but it's very challenging, right? And we have curriculum content masters that know the content in that class. A special education teacher is not an Algebra 2 teacher. They're an intervention specialist, right? Their area of expertise is taking the content that's being taught and making sure that it can be accessible to everybody. Where the content specialist is almost the exact opposite, right? They need to know from beginning to end, what does that class need? And we've got these people living in spaces together for the first time now. So we need to help them connect together. How does an intervention specialist become more of a content specialist? How does a content specialist develop the mindset of an interventionist? And that's where the developing of curriculum comes in. We have opportunities now to do things that limited us before when we were isolated. Now that we're together, how can we rethink what we're doing? How can we reimagine how we're assessing kids, how we're instructing kids? What sort of experiences are we giving them in the classroom? With more resources there, the sky's really the limit. So the challenge is to think outside the box and grow our program. I think that will be our last part. I don't need to jump into Jay's treasures before. I can try for it if you want me to.
Go ahead.
I would give it my best shot. But like I said, we do have our 5th grade intervention specialist here, Mr. Chase Held. This is actually his first year in that role. So not only is he transitioning into a co-taught room. He's transitioning to a new building, he's transitioning to working with younger kids. Did fantastic work at our high school, now doing the same thing. Mrs. Lamble, Mrs. Fisher, the same situation, you know, transitioning from a new building into a new culture, getting used to those things. I don't know, do you guys have anything, pros or cons? Have you, anything that you would like to share with everybody while you have the opportunity?
Sure, yeah, just from the special educator perspective, this is my 6th year and I was here when we did have the resource room, so I've taught in that environment. And it's a big improvement in inclusion just because the expectations are raised, but still the accommodations and the support is still there. So I like to use the phrase, we're teaching them up a level instead of kind of teaching to their level. And as I've seen them at high school and I've seen those kids, how their gaps have been separated from their peers. And now seeing them in 5th grade, when I'm in that classroom, like Mr. George said, I'm not the special education teacher when I'm in there. I'm just Mr. Held, and there's a shared responsibility with me and the content teacher. And it takes some of the pressure off of both of us in that we can kind of rely on each other. And it's really, I really like the word supplemental. You know, like if I teach with Mrs. Lee and Mrs. Bowling, if Mrs. Lee is teaching and I see a student who's maybe kind of losing track, then I can step in and go provide some individual attention to them. You know, there's just there's not a us and them, it's more of a we, which as a special educator, that's really important to me. I don't want my students to feel like they're different or separated. And I think high expectations are important for them. And I think that really helps them as they get out of school and into the real world.
And coming from the gen ed point of it, I've spent years teaching 4th grade, and a lot of years I've had the gifted cluster. So it's a little bit, it's now that I have all of the kids in math, it's been really fun to see the special ed kids and how we can all kind of accommodate things. And I teach differently because now that I see that and I see her teaching, I know how to say things and how to adapt my own curriculum that I've taught for many years to meet all the needs, when in the past it was more kind of, I just taught to everybody. And now I see between the two of us that we can kind of play off of each other. She's seeing that, oh, well, I've been walking around and they're not getting that, she jumps in, or vice versa. She's teaching and I walk around and I'm like, wait, let's go back to that, because you're able to play off of each other and do that kind of team building. And the kids don't really pay any attention to it's whoever's closest to them at that point. Like, they don't care if it's me or Mrs. Gill or whoever. It's like, I just need help and we help whoever. So it's not like she only helps her identified students. We help them all, and they don't even pay attention to the fact that it's me or her. I mean, I know that's the same with her, so.
This is new to us, like we're new to the building, we're new to everything. We're half a year into this, but for me, the benefits outweigh the negatives immensely. 2 sets of hands, 2 sets of eyes. If there's a behavior issue, learning doesn't stop. Somebody's taking care of it and the others, and like she said, we just feed off each other. Hey, can you re-say this a different way so maybe they get this concept? Or we've been intentional about planning together. We meet weekly and plan together so that we can get all angles, or this is what's coming up. Is there a way that we can teach this better or differently? So intentionality is huge for us as a team. Even we're doing character traits. How can we do that in science? How can we do that in social studies? How can we all be intentional about working together so that all the kids benefit, not just, you know, a certain group. So that's been really, really neat to communicate. It's intentional communication, but it's been huge. We gave the iReady Fall diagnostic and started, you know, in the fall. 90+% kids have shown growth, and some of them huge growth. And this is a part of it, you know. So the benefits completely outweigh any negatives that we can. If we said, what are the negatives? I'm not sure I could come up with any. So I'm excited about learning more and continuing to grow in this area. It's really good for our kids.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. And they're the ones doing the work. I'm the least important part of this whole process. Right? I mean, it's really, it's these guys, it's the kids that are in those classrooms. I don't matter here. It's the work that they're doing. And it's just really exciting, which is why, you know, thank you, Dr. Woodruff, for inviting me to come up here and speak to this. But really, thank you guys for coming in here and just advocating for the work that you're doing. They're tremendous. And I think we've got a lot to really celebrate here in what we're doing and the direction that we've taken the work that we're doing for these kids. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak to you this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'd
Before
be happy to.
Mr. George?
No, I just want to say that I think it's outstanding that we're moving in this direction. I've been in a co-teaching environment for 13 years.
Yeah.
And there are huge benefits for the teachers. We learn so much from each other. The best parts of my teaching have come from things I've learned from other teachers and from experience. And when we're in the same room together, we share those things. And the regular ed students and the special ed students both benefit from this. The special ed teacher and the regular ed teacher, the content specialist teacher, are both in that classroom addressing the needs of every student, not just the special ed students. And those special ed students have positive role models that are a little bit higher. And they're gonna aspire a little bit higher because of the peers that are in their room. So anyway, it's very positive. I appreciate you all embracing it and doing such a good job with it. And I appreciate you initiating this change. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You.
Good luck, Mr. Graff. Do you need
Help
the,
the break here.
do you need the control? Oh, you
I got it
I'm sorry.
covered. Yeah.
All right, thank you guys so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on to the treasurer's report. One, approve the minutes from the regular board meeting, November 18th, 2021, and special board meeting, December 6th, 2021. Two, approve the November financial reports. We approve the then and now of Silver Creek Township in the amount of $6,598.54 for the Cottonville Road project. Four, approved resolution accepting the Greene County Budget Commission rates commencing January 1st, 2022. Bond retirement fund, 2.32 mils, $540,966. Five, approve the amended appropriations as presented. Six, approve the following budget and purpose statements. A, high school marching band. B, revised class of 2022, class of 2023, and creation of a prom fund to be managed by the junior class advisor. Approve the then and now to Miami Valley Education Computer Association in the amount of $19,156 for VOIP service for fiscal 2022 school year. And 8, approve the disposal and donation of the elementary floor scrubber to the Jamestown Church of Christ.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll hit my highlights, and then if there's any other questions, we'll go from there. The then and now to Silver Creek Township for the Cottonville Road project. That was the project we saw this summer. We actually agreed to pay for part of this back in 2016, and it got done this summer. So there's the pace of government work for you, for everybody out there. 5 years. The budgeting commission rates, that's just every year. The amended appropriations, I have that document for you here. We're increasing our 034, that is our classroom facilities maintenance fund. We're increasing that appropriation. We have a couple projects coming up at the high school, some doors that need to be replaced. That is funds that were set aside from the Ohio School Facilities Commission. When we built the middle school, they can be used for the middle school and the high school, and it's to maintain those buildings as they were when they were open. So we spent some of this money on HVAC, but like I said, like things like the doors and stuff. So it's restricted to that, but we have some projects coming up there. The budget and purpose statements, the revised class of 2022, and the creation of a prom fund. This is something that we've been asked for many years. I said, give me an educational purpose for prom, and then they, Mrs. Beam gave us a great educational purpose for prom, so I said I would recommend it to the board. So that's the reason for the revision to the class of 2022. We've already approved it, but the revision is pulling those funds out to set them aside for prom, and then the prom fund will be money spent on prom and money received for prom, and it will stay as the prom fund for every year. That's that. The other than and now is just it's a purchase order got put on in August, but our services started in July. It's for the whole year. The disposal and donation of the elementary floor scrubber. We have bought and received a new floor scrubber. The other one is over 20 years old. It does still function, but not functioning at you know, the level that we would like to see it at. This was the recommendation from our maintenance supervisor. You know, we could possibly find some, sell it for a minimal amount of money, but he said at this point he'd feel better donating it to somebody local that could use it. So this was his recommendation, and that's why it's on there. Are there any questions?
Jacob, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like number 7, so I'm asking because I'm not familiar, like the computer association. Like,
It's our phones,
Oh, okay.
District-wide
Okay.
phones.
voice
and
over
internet.
IP.
Yeah, voice
Yeah.
over IP.
Okay, gotcha. That's what that stands for. Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out the acronym. Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
I
Thank
should
you.
have said it that way, voice over IP, but I didn't.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
I'll move. I'll second.
Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
Yeah.
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Go to the superintendent's update. One,
There you go.
teaching and learning, 2 operations, and 3 our favorite facilities.
Right, so I'm gonna segue from something that you heard in the presentation on inclusive services and co-teaching. And you've also heard me talk about the implementation of our benchmarking assessments. So in the fall, winter, and spring, all grade levels, all subject areas now have a diagnostic tool to be able to determine kind of where students are and what their growth looks like. So this is just a snapshot of the kind of information that we're getting now during the winter benchmarking window. It is open. We still have students that are going to actually test after the window as well. So not all students have tested. Again, this is just a snapshot to show you the kind of information that are available to district administrators, building administrators, teachers, and even families. So let me kind of explain here what you're looking at. Those 2 colored parallel lines at the top, the one that's on the bottom that looks kind of shaded out, that is actually where our fall diagnostic data fell. This is a sample of reading in our lower grades. So the kind of like blurred out or less vivid bar there shows how many students who were in green, which is what we kind of consider as proficient, if you will. The yellow represents students that might be 1 grade level behind, and the red would be 2 grade levels behind or more. And so obviously the goal, as they say, is to grow the green and reduce the red. So if you look at the top bar on top of that, and again, this is just a sample of students tested. We have 852 students that would need to actually test for iReady reading. In this particular case, and only 563 have tested. So the jury's not out yet, but I think you heard the teachers allude to earlier, the kind of growth that we're seeing from fall to winter, which I think is certainly a testament to our teachers and some of the strong instructional practices that we're seeing in our building. And so like this report would be advantageous at a high level, whether like, you know, from my seat, so to speak, or even a building principal. You can actually break this down if you look below to an individual grade level. So you can see in kindergarten, you know, how we did in the fall as compared to how we did in the winter, and so on and so forth. Take a look at the back. And I'm pretty sure now second grade just started testing, but really even just to do like a quick eye test there, you see more green in the winter and less red than you saw in the fall. So what would you do with this kind of information? Again, you can break it down to explicitly at the classroom level and even at the student level, identify where those students are, and you can start to tailor. And if you're lucky enough to have an intervention specialist in your room, you've got two hands to help, tailor your instruction and really identify where students are to help be intentional. I heard that word earlier as well in growing students. The second sheet is just another example. The two lines at the top of the page are exactly what you saw at the front, but this is just a different kind of report that really breaks down. If you go to the bottom, it breaks down, okay, well, how are students doing specifically in phonemic awareness? How are they doing in phonics, high word frequency, vocabulary, fictional text, non-fictional text? And these are just two reports. So we really have great information, I feel. And we're not waiting till the spring to see how students do on the state test. We've got tools now that we're able to really identify where students are performing, and we can adjust our instruction accordingly. Really valuable tools that are very beneficial to kind of how we do business, and it's really kind of changed the game for us. So I wanted to give you a snapshot of those pieces that we have in the district, in the buildings, the classrooms, and can even share with families, individual student reports. Really valuable information.
Great stuff.
And it's December, so we're closing out the second grading period. At the high school, they're taking exams. We have some students that are actually taking state assessments as well that might need additional graduation requirements. Our career tech students are taking web exams, so it is certainly a busy time, especially at the high school, as we kind of close out on the first semester, and hard to believe we'll be starting the second semester here shortly after break. I will jump to facilities. I forget what order you asked, but so we're waiting on a final inspection at the bus garage to fill the fuel tank. And the phase 1 of the bus project will have been complete, and we'll be able to kind of look second semester at looking at starting the new project. And we have broken ground at the middle school, which I know is something that we have been with the playground that we've been talking about, I believe, since I was hired in August. So some of that was, prioritizing some of the work in the district. So we've broken down on the middle school playground as well. Rika's in our district. They continue to troubleshoot. One is making sure that they kind of audit all of our facilities to see what should have fallen under the previous agreement and what are some of those pre-existing items. So that should be finishing up this week, tomorrow. At the same time, seeing where we need to troubleshoot and fix items, addressing those directly. But in my mind, really the greater piece is really diagnosing the root causes of some of our HVAC problems in the district. So that work is ongoing and will likely take some time. Okay, so at this point now, I've been gathering information on what it would take to be able to look at how we could maybe possibly renovate the field house. And it's, taking the field house that we have and doing renovations with that space, or maybe even possibly looking at some additional space or new spaces. So now I'm starting to actually get some, general cost analysis of what that should look like or could look like. And so what I would like to do with that information now is to really, after the break, is start getting some community input on where they feel like we should land. Should we be looking at a renovation? Should we be looking at a new space? And obviously bringing that information to you as well as to what path that we would take, what makes sense of our space, what makes sense cost-wise, and then looking into the future, what we feel would be most beneficial, and not just necessarily to wrestling and football, but to all sports. Looking at track, but also could there be multi-purpose space that could be accessed and used by other sports that aren't in season. So I feel like I have enough information at this point to start putting pen to paper and talking about what those next steps should be, and then also folding individuals from the community into those conversations. So, I don't know, at some point, do we get to the point where we might be doing a survey with our community too, or maybe some focus groups? I think I want to take our time to make sure that we understand really what our community would like to see, and then also bring information to you so that you can also share what you would like to see moving forward too.
So are you thinking, depending on the cost, on what we decide is best fit for the district, possibly adding that to the levy that we need to think about here in a year or two?
I think that that is another layer of what could that look like? Could we use some of our ESSER dollars? Could we use some of our current permanent improvement monies? Could we get donation that could really put a good chunk into? What I'd like to do is be able to land on something that we have tangibly that then again we could weigh in on and determine, could we get enough maybe private donation to be able to help fund that? You know, do we need to look at a permanent improvement levy that might be able to contribute to that? So I think that there is no short answer to that. And then long-term projections of, you know, what does master facility planning look like as we know we can see, especially some of the challenges we're having at our elementary. So
Right.
it all kind of works together. I think that next semester, at least internally, we also need to start, you know, thinking about how does this fit into master planning as well, and what potentially we would have to ask the community for, what kind of levy hits. So that was a long answer because I think there's a lot of there's a lot of
moving
very
parts.
different directions that we can go. But I want to take our time and go slow now to go fast, and be efficient with that.
Yep.
So. And then in terms of operations, so as of yesterday, we have 4 positive cases in our district. We had 7 students quarantined. That's kind of been the going rate, so to speak, somewhere between 4 and 7 positives and somewhere between 5 and 12 quarantines. We know the holidays coming up. We know that you know, families will be having gatherings. You'll be out of your bubble a little bit, maybe. We know with the new variant. So we're certainly, even though we're not in session, you know, our kids are still playing sports. We're still having activities take place in the district. So we'll continue to watch those numbers. You know, so anyway, watching that, I still feel like, you know, we watch the data. I know there's concern about, hey, like, are our numbers going to jump? I've heard buzz that there's supposed to be a spike. Anyway, we haven't seen that spike, but again, I would just communicate. I watch it every day. We're diligent about it. Should our numbers change, should things start to spike, then we'll address that should the situation present itself. So, and just asking everyone to maintain their diligence. I know we want to get back to normal as much as possible, but still being cautious, and we're still doing that within our buildings. Second semester, we're also going to be tightening up check-in, check-out procedures at all 3 of our buildings, elementary, middle, and high school. Communication to the community will come out next week. Everyone will be required to show proof of ID. I know that is happening, you know, most of the time, if not all of the time, but really something in print and in writing. Everyone will have to show ID during school hours to be able, you know, to enter the building. So a general reminder will be to everyone, make sure their stuff's updated in OneView, make sure that, you know, custodial, legal, parents, that they're in the system, anyone that can, you know, have access to the student picking up or dropping off, just, you know, tightening that up a little bit. But again, we'll make sure that we communicate that to
So
families.
how does that work with the high school? Because the door's clear over here, the office is clear here. Do they have to walk up to the office window and show it through the window
They will,
before they enter the
no, they
building?
actually, there's a camera there, and there is a mirror to be able to identify who is at the door before you get buzzed in. But it's interesting you bring that point up, because I was just at the high school today. There is a school safety grant available, and I really don't want to say it out loud because I don't want to jinx it. There's a school safety grant available that we're applying for that would improve the vestibule area. So
Good.
knock on wood, that is on a list, and hoping that we can get some free money to address that
Good.
issue. All right. And I'm sure you're aware, today parents received information, one call from myself as well as an email around 4:30. There is a TikTok message out on social media, evidently tomorrow, something to do with violence to your school day. It is not a Greeneview thing. It is a US thing. I would say probably most schools in the area have also sent out communication. We are always diligent. We have an officer already at each of our buildings. I mean, that is practice for us. I mean, obviously with the events that have taken place in Michigan, there was a sense of urgency created in our buildings anyway. So, we are diligent. I talked to Chief Tyree today. We're making sure that we're extra alert, about the situation, asking families to also talk with their students, their children, about social media and just kind of about what's going on. We know most of our students do the right thing most of the time. I very much appreciate that. I also appreciate whether it is, an administrator, a parent, or a child, if they hear something, letting us know right away so we can be, over cautious and we can kind of jump on a situation. So I appreciate that from our community. Obviously, we take threats seriously and, consequences will follow, whether that be suspension, expulsion, I hate to say, or even the involvement of law enforcement. So we obviously do not take that lightly. And just want to thank everyone who's been very supportive both today and since Michigan. I mean, I think it really pulls our buildings together in a different way too. And in closing, Mr. McGrath, this will be Mr. McGrath's last trip to the table. I regret to share. And I would just like to thank him. I'm starting a new chapter in Yellow Springs and wish you all the best, Mr. McGrath. And thank you very much from a new superintendent seat for the collaboration we've been able to have. It is actually not that common in this work. So thank you, and I wish you the very best. Mr. Ireland is also, it's your last stint at the table as well. Mr. Ireland serves as our board president and has also been on the board since 2010, I understand. And so before you leave us today, I would like to extend this plaque to you. For your leadership to our district and for your support of the children in this community. Thank you kindly, and I especially thank you too, although that our journey was short, you have been nothing but supportive, and I appreciate you being at the helm here.
Thank you very much.
Because I got it to
appreciate
speak.
that. That is wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And of course, just want to wish everyone a very happy and healthy holiday season. Mr. President, that is my superintendent's update.
Well, thank you for that. And we're going to miss you, Jacob, for sure. So, let's move on to new business. Let's establish the date for the tax budget hearing. So we need to come up with a date.
When are we supposed to file?
By the
Has to
15th.
be
Oh,
by
the
the
15th.
By the
15th.
Probably
15th.
looking at the 13th.
Yeah.
What day of the
Third-
week is that?
That's Thursday,
It's a Thursday, so it'd be your.
Normal,
Mhm.
kind of.
Yeah. You just
second
put the
Thursday.
organizational and tax in front of the regular board meeting.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the 13th.
I'm fine with the 13th.
Yeah, the career center's the next day, so that'll be fun. Or the day before, day before Wednesday.
Okay, so we'll go to the 13th. All right. 2, appoint the following board member to serve as temporary chairperson for the January organizational meeting. Chairperson
I'll do
Scott,
it
you've
again.
done that
Scott.
for as long as I've been a board
That's
member.
Scott's
so,
job.
That's
I'll do
Scott's
it.
job.
Until you get in that chair and get a plaque. it's your task. Sorry about you.
Okay, 3, approve the MOU for the new stipend position, district printing advisor to the certified supplemental salary schedule. 4, approve the interim treasurer's contract. And 5, approve the treasurer search agreement with K-12 Business Consulting, Inc. Have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan.
Yes.
Todd
Are
Ireland.
we gonna do any
Yes.
discussion on anything? So I had a question. When,
Oh.
do we have any, I'm sorry, but
What questions do you have?
what is the start date of the interim?
So in the contract, we wrote it up such that December 17th, tomorrow would be the start date for the interim
I
treasurer.
didn't get to read that.
We don't anticipate that he would be in here tomorrow, but if there are some days, well, especially while Mr. McGrath is still in the office over the holiday, Mr. Kinzel, who's going to serve as the interim, he might be able to come out here and spend some time with him prior to January 1, if you will. So it allows the flexibility that these two can connect anytime that's convenient for the two of them.
Okay, because I didn't read that thoroughly.
So we said we only have them until February 28th then?
Which is the last day of February. Our intention and our hope is that we would do the search, and in fact, with your blessing, with your approval here, we'll post the position tomorrow
Right.
and start the superintendent search. Take care.
Superintendent
Search.
search.
You better not be doing a superintendent search.
Yeah. Are you telling us something now?
How many
Treasurer.
times did I say superintendent?
Okay.
We start the treasurer search.
That's-
And conduct interviews. And the goal would be that we would actually have
Somebody
the
in place.
treasurer in the seat March 1st. That's the intention. Any other questions for me on those
No
items?
Now you can go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Scott Powers,
Yeah,
Teresa Wallace,
Yes.
motion passed 5-0.
Okay, let's move on to personnel. Approve the resignation of Clint Connor as maintenance supervisor, December 3rd, 2021. Approve the resignation of Jacob McGrath, treasurer, effective December 31st, 2021. Approve Molly Beam, step 1 stipend for district printing advisor for the 2021-22 school year. Approve the following classified substitutes for 2021-22 school year. Nikki Butts, cook, Chris McClure, van driver. Approve the following classified substitutes for 2022. Secretary Heather Lucas, Joanna Casho, Casey Payton, and Penny Van Stress. Building assistant, bus aide, Lee Battaglia, Heather Lucas, Joanna Casho, and Penny Van Tress. Cooks, Margie Butchwaller, Susan McCauley, Joanna Casho, Crystal D'Souza, Penny Van Tress, and Nikki Butts. Custodian, Susan McCauley, Joanna Casho, Alan Pippin, Steve Morris, Rebecca Vogel, Laura Hanson, Nikki Butts, Clayton Moore, Joel Armovich, and Gary Cardosi. Bus driver Jay Brandenburg, and mechanic Steve Morris. 6, approve the following substitute teachers for the 2022 school year. Allison Corey, Lee Battaglia, James Deerwester, Faye Sessler, Linda Thomas, Dean Gordon, Mark Mash, Jenny Smith, Angie Lowe, Carolyn Kugler, Lori Young, Amy Powers, Barbara McCowan, Bill Green, Cindy Mash, Heather Lucas, Heather Brooks, Richard Castle, Heather Kasner, Rita Canny, Dina Reed, Jane Cross, Shelley Bestie, David Bates, John Morrison, Diana Nestor, Dulcinda Wilson, Sue Ellis, Lee Armovich, Sue Norin, Alicia Wagner, Kathy Arisman, and Cassidy Wisecup. 7, approve the following supplemental positions for the 2021-22 school year. Mark Altos, bowling, previously approved as a volunteer. 8, approve the resignation of Marcia Coates effective May 31st, 2022 due to retirement. And 9, approve a limited 1-year contract with Billy Baker for the maintenance supervisor position. Any discussion?
I have a question. I know I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask again. So for every position a classified substitute is able to fill, they have to be approved. So if you're a bus driver and you want to be a custodian or a cook, your name will be under every single area because we have to approve them to do that job, right?
To pay them.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I know
Yeah.
how we've
You're
asked this
approving,
before. I'm
yeah.
like looking at the
Yeah.
same people over and over and over. I'm just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah, we gotta approve them under each position.
So
that
they're
they
like
may work.
cross-trained. They can fill in.
I mean, there's substitutes in these positions. So obviously like some are like specialized as far as like bus drivers, you gotta have
Sure.
the license to do it. Cooks and stuff and secretaries, it depends, but it probably, who they may fill in for, and I'm sure we train them in those positions.
Okay.
I wanted to say thanks to all of our subs because we have been scrambling this year a lot. One of the ones that you see, the van driver, Chris McClure, she's our transportation secretary right now. She has been filling in and our bus drivers, and it's been a little bit of a madhouse this year. I'm trying to make sure we've had to split kids up. She had to drive the van because we had so many drivers out that we had to split kids up and we still didn't have room. So she drove the van to get kids home that day. So thank you to everybody that substitutes in our district because you help keep us running. But yes,
That was my other question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any other questions? If none, a motion?
I'll move. I'll second.
Suzanne Arthur,
Abstain.
Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
Abstain.
Teresa Wallace,
Yes.
motion passed 3-0.
We're gonna move into discussion. No items. And now into comments or questions, so. Ryan, did we answer all
Yeah.
your?
Ryan, you saw.
Yeah.
You're leaving, so it kind of kills my first question. I wanted about being able to get the budget for athletics, the breakdown possible.
Okay.
To see what goes to what and how the money's spent,
Okay.
how much money there is.
Okay.
You still got my email?
I'll try to dig it up.
I'll send you one in the morning.
Okay.
Where are we at on, I know the field house, but what about the practice field, with it being on somebody else's property and that and mold problem that was supposedly out here a couple of years ago? Has there been any thought about moving the field out here and doing
Kind of
something
master
to?
planning is what I would think. That's what we've been talking about is the master plan. You've been here enough to hear that now.
I know, I've been here for a while and hearing about
Well,
a
I
master
haven't.
plan and I don't see anything.
Okay.
Okay, well, you will. That's part of the master planning.
The field house plan,
No, the field house in my mind is separate from second semester looking at master facilities planning as it relates to all of our campuses. Again, first priority is the elementary school. And then these other pieces that would fall within that.
in terms
Additional field
of
space.
master plan of getting a new elementary. Or
Well, that's yet to be
fixing an
determined.
elementary.
That's yet to be determined.
It's all this discussion.
Okay.
I understand about the practice field.
Is that the one that's over by the church across the street?
Yes.
Yeah. And the kids playing soccer in the park and they have to split the field because the girls practice at this time and then the boys come in and practice at that time. And as the season goes later, they don't have the time because we're not as light possibly at times, and so I guess the whole field house thing and that is, we're not moving the weight room anymore, or trying to do a locker room or any of that stuff. It's all part of that master plan.
No, I addressed the field house directly, like that was first priority. For several pieces, as I've shared here, the first thing that we did was we brought the coaches together. We looked at how we need to utilize the current space. Where we landed was, we'd like to know, what does a full renovation of that building, what's that going to cost us? Is that the best use of our money? Should we be looking at building a new space? Is it a thing where there are some renovations and a new space? Is it a new space only? Is it just a renovation? I'm not going to make that decision in isolation. But now I have enough information gathered to be able to identify what some of those costs now could be. What could that look like? So next semester, my thought was to take that information, start sharing it in a way that we can gather feedback from the community. Separate topic. How we're looking at all of our campuses. What are we going to do with the what does the future look like for the elementary school? Included in that, should we have a practice field over, whether it be by the middle school, by the high school? So that's like bigger picture. I wasn't in my mind lumping them all together. I prioritized the field house.
Okay.
And then second step, master planning. Those things can happen in conjunction. In fact, I have a meeting next week to start talking with someone about master facility planning. But I see the practice fields as a part of that bigger picture. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
yeah.
Two separate trains
That
that
makes
can
sense,
kind
yeah.
of move.
Field house is priority, and then the practice fields and all facilities.
That's
are
where
part
I
of that
started
together.
anyway.
Yeah. You were meeting with coaches when you first got here. Did you get through that and
Fall coaches,
just follow coaches?
yeah, still need to do one. I can do
Okay, okay. And you talked about the TikTok thing. We were at the game and the kids were talking about how there was a kid coming back to the high school today or Wednesday, and he had been suspended for threats. And, I wouldn't have heard anything as a parent unless it just happened to be a part of the kids' conversation. And they were all real worried because of that kid. And you said, bring it to the school, is there, would you call Kasner or, because the kids were worried about in the morning,
Yeah,
the kids showing up. And I said, you guys are going to be fine. Kasner's right there at the front door. The police officer's right next to him. I'm sure that they're aware of the issue.
Your building principal.
Yeah, okay. And what about any new programs, that academic programs that would be offered? You talk about the bigger picture, new ones offered to these kids, because Angela's very happy because we have so many kids going to the Career Center, but, more programs to try to keep kids in Greeneview instead of, you talk about getting out in the community and talking to them. Have you talked to kids and said, hey, what are you guys interested in? What would you like us to see brought in here that you guys would be interested in taking?
Yeah, I don't
To-
disagree with that. I would also add to what makes sense for, the workforce or the local need in our district. As I came on board, I asked the same questions. Obviously, the Career Center is fabulous and valuable and has lots of opportunity. However, a wonderment of me, I do not know the answer to this yet, is what could we or should we be doing to support students, at our high school? I'm not passing judgment. I don't know the answer to that question yet. We kind of talked about what is a Greeneview grad? And what are the programs that we have at our high school to be able to also best prepare them for post-high school?
Well, I think too, a lot of that discussion was when we decided to make the changes with the grades, moving the 8th grade to the high school, was that allowed us to keep those programs
That's true,
at the
too.
high school because
Yeah.
so many students went to the Career Center. I think that this next year right now is going to be probably one of the biggest applicant years. And then I think it's going to even itself out. I think that the newness is going to be over and the people who are interested will still be interested. And those who aren't are going to stay put over here because we can provide a quality education at the high school and take care of our kids. So I don't know about new programs, but I know that,
It's
we're
really about
already
student
above,
needs.
right. We
What are
have to
their
be able to,
needs?
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Has there been anything put out to what the students, I understand what you say, you guys believe what they need, but have you reached out to the facility managers and said, hey, what are our high school kids possibly interested in trying new?
Of course, we would gather feedback from the students.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I didn't really have any questions, but
Mhm.
it's been a little while since I've been to a board meeting. I've got a junior high student.
What's your name?
Oh, Nathaniel Newton.
Okay.
So I haven't been in a meeting for a while, but I am pleasantly surprised. for one of the first meetings that Dr. Woodruff attended, we talked about the field house. So I'm glad to see that that's still an agenda item and taken priority. Also, I'm pleasantly surprised about the mentioning of surveys, transparency, community input, feedback. As a community member, I haven't always felt that way, but that's been present. So that's refreshing. But just one note is I actually recently spoke to an administrator at Triad. And I don't know if anybody's been to Triad in the last few years, but in a 3-year span, they completely transformed their whole facilities, especially their outdoor facilities, which is what we're looking at. Their superintendent, Vicki Hoffman, in 4 years did amazing things. So I would encourage, as an OHCC member, that might be somebody that we reach out to just to kind of get some feedback if you haven't already. That might be a suggestion. But overall, I'm glad to see that there's progress being made. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else, board? No?
Just thank you
Oh,
for your service.
all right. Yes, it is. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. You guys will continue to do good things. And as I reflect back on the years spent here, I know I made a difference to the district. And 4 generations of our family has been through the school district, so it feels good to give back to the community doing this. But at the same time, just stay diligent. We do want the opinions of the community and things like that, but stay strong and don't sway with what you think your opinion should be. And I know that you're in good hands here, and I thought we were in real good hands when I decided to leave. I said, well, this thing's.
She's trying to hire a superintendent. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. So, I think we've got a good, yeah. We both talked with the interim, and I think that we'll be, or the district will be in good hands there. I'm sure Jacob won't be but a phone call away. So
I'm just here to keep you guys out of trouble.
that's the first words that I told that interim treasurer when we were on there. I said, I'm leaving, but I said, you got to keep the district out of trouble because we've got a pretty good track record. He assured me that he would. So, but it's been a good run. Thank you.
I've enjoyed working with you in a different capacity.
Yes.
We had contact many years before we became board members.
Many years,
So,
yes. I was forced into being a soccer coach. And I had a lot of young girls that were very impressionable.
and they survived.
They survived. They did survive. I should have coached boys. I shouldn't have coached girls, but the girls really, they were very attentive. And you look back at it now, and almost all of those girls were very successful in what what they've done. All right.
I'll move.
Move for adjournment.
I'll second.
Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan.
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers.
Yeah.
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. We are adjourned at 8:03.